Okay, well, hi everyone. Welcome to the launch party for Nuestra Historia Primaria Uno. My name is Cal Powers, and I am a curriculum manager here at Voces Digital, and I served as the lead project manager on this title. So I'm going to do about a 20-minute overview of the book. I could go into so many rabbit holes talking about my favorite pages in this book, so I'm going to try to go somewhere between a general overview and a detailed overview. So we'll be somewhere in the middle. And then after that 20-minute overview, we will have about 20 minutes for a Q&A. So you can ask questions about what else is in the book, or how best to use it in your classroom, or if you want to see more examples of pages that I show you, then that is the time we could do that as well. And the last 5 minutes of our meeting time will be spent doing a raffle. I have a teacher storytelling book that's a physical book that features 2 stories from this book that we're about to take a look at that you can use in your classroom to get into telling stories with your students. So let me share my screen and we can begin looking at, okay, bear with me as I rearrange all of my windows. I use a big screen TV as my monitor, so every time I share my window, they all rearrange. Okay, you're seeing my screen? I can't see faces nodding, so I'll hope so. If not, unmute and say no. So this book, Nuestra Historia Primaria Uno, came about by working with Erica Poplinski-Burge. Erica is a phenomenal teacher that has been working in CI at the elementary level for the past 17 years. And she's a pretty big name if you haven't heard of her in the CI world. And she's always been asked about what curriculum she uses in her classroom, but she's always had to say, I take a little from here and there, because there's a lack of comprehensible input curricula for this specific age level. So she has to pick and choose from other pieces of curricula. And so we worked together to imagine what CI and what the Voces style would look like in the elementary classrooms. So we wanted to create curriculum for K through 5th grade. And this first book, Primaria Uno, is applicable for kindergarten through 2nd grade. And the second book, Primaria Dos, will come out later this summer, and that will cover 3rd grade through 5th grade. So you will read Erica's voice throughout the entire book through teacher notes. She will give recommendations on how to best implement something in your classroom, or how to alter it for certain considerations with your classroom. So she really gives you the ins and outs of how to best use this curriculum in your classroom. Unfortunately, she's not with us this evening, but if you would like to hear more about this project from her point of view, she will be discussing this project at our summer conference. So if you'd like to hear more from her, make sure to sign up for our summer conference today and you can attend her session. So let me show you the directory first. I think that will give you a good picture of the organization of the book. And then we'll look at some example pages of each type of page in this book. If you are an existing Voces user, a lot of this will look familiar. We based it off of the same structure, but we've made some alterations, and you'll see some really cool new features, new activity types, and some really cool media that we have throughout these units. So we have 9 units total, each on very basic themes that a lot of intro language books use, but we make sure to integrate these into stories that our youngest learners would love. Each unit starts with an introduction section where there's an introduction page for teachers that tell you a little bit about each story that's in that unit, what themes are in it, what countries are discussed, what abilities the students will gain by going through that unit. So this is a really good way for you to just take a peek at what that unit's all about. If you're not working your way chronologically through the book and just jumping around and want to find something that best suits what your students need right now, that's the place to look to make that decision of which unit you want to start with. Then the introduction for students is a cool page that serves as a schemata activator for our students. So this will be in video format eventually. Right now we're developing them, but it will pose questions like, do you know how to say hello in Spanish? Or how are you feeling today? Or do you fight with your friends? So these questions that we can ask our students to get them to start thinking about some of the themes that will show up in the stories in that unit. And the video will feature little illustrations from the story, so it gets them really excited about what they're going to read in the future. So that could be a really useful tool in your classroom to get your students excited for what they're about to read. So after the introduction, you'll find 2 short stories, each with their own vocab that they introduce, an extra section, which serves as a collection of additional resources you can use to help your students understand the vocab and themes better before you get to the evaluation section where you assess their skills. So let's take a look at what's inside one historieta. So the first page you'll see is a vocab page. On these pages, you'll see the top section is like a regular page of vocab that you see in other Voces titles. This is the important vocabulary that every student, no matter what grade they're in, kindergarten through 2nd grade, they should be able to understand these words in the story that they are about to read. So you can think of this as like the base vocabulary. And then you're wondering, okay, if it's in kindergarten and 2nd grade, how do we differentiate? So like I said, everyone should get this base vocab, but for those students who need a little more challenge or are native speakers, or you have more time with your students and want to go deeper into the story, we have additional vocabulary that you can implement throughout the unit. Every single vocab page has both base and extension vocabulary. And once we start looking at the activities, you'll see how this extension vocabulary works its way into how the activities are structured as well. You'll also notice that, like all of our other CI titles, we have total physical response gestures, physical movement descriptions that you can use to help your students associate with the vocab. And these come up later throughout the activities as well. Like there's a video for each story that we suggest, like on the 3rd watch, you can have your students do each sign for the words that they know when they hear it in the story. So that's a fun way to get them moving, and some of them can be pretty funny if you work that into your class, so it can be very fun. So after that vocab page is an Empasamus section, which is the next stepping stone to get your students from just knowing what the word is to using it in context, and that prepares them for the story that we're going to read. These Empasamus activities are created by Erica, so these are all class activities, not something you would assign for homework. This is usually something that's projected up on the screen, or there's handouts that you can print out and work on together. And I have some examples of those that I want to show you. Okay, here's one that's a pretty standard one. Not all of them are like, not all of them have an extensive slideshow that's 30 slides, you know. Some are simple, here's 2 printouts to do, and you can do this in a pretty short amount of time in your classroom. These are always organized in, I'm a teacher myself, so I know, like, get to the point, what do I have to prepare for this activity? So I always put the preparation section in the front of what you need to prepare, print out, and get ready before the actual activity starts. So you can easily see right there. Then it gets into the descriptions of the activities, and most of the time there's a bonus tip or an extension tip on how to get more out of this activity if you have more time or more advanced students that are blowing through this. I'll show you another fun intro activity that's one of the more high energy ones, and this is one of my favorites that I created. Animales mezclados, so mixed up animals. This comes in the body and food chapter. So we're working on body parts, and I created this fun slideshow of animals that are mixed up body parts of different animals. So you'll get to work with your students to identify the different body parts and what animals they come from. And as you go further and further, there are more animals in the mix. This was my favorite. So I had fun making this, and I think the students will enjoy these kinds of fun, goofy ways to get into the curriculum. Okay, so let's take a look at the story script. So after this Empasamus section, we get into the actual story. So what you're seeing here on my screen now is the teacher view, just like you see in your regular textbook. With this new book, Primaria Uno, this will be the first book that we have a brand new interface that the students will see on their end. So I will show you what this looks like on both sides so you can see the pros and cons of both. So on the teacher view, you will see all of the teacher notes. We give pretty explicit directions on how to best engage in multiple levels with this page. Then there's a flag and map of the country of where we're in, so you can start connecting geography. And then it's segmented in an illustration, a chunk of the text, and an audio from native speakers reading that text. So it works the same as all of our other books. There's popovers, and the audio you can speed up and slow down and all of that. You can really take your time on this story script page and work your way through these individual slides and make sure your students are understanding the story. Sometimes there's grammar notes involved. And this is a work at your own pace, pretty much page. Then after your students are comfortable with the story itself, they can watch the video version of it. This is a new thing that I created for this book that now we're going back to our older books that are already published and adding these in. So every story has a video version that accompanies it. And let me mute this so you can't hear it, but the video uses those illustrations you saw on the last page and animates it to focus on who is speaking and all of that to really help the comprehension. It's also really fun and goofy sometimes when animals are in the story. I'll add in little animal chittering noises and whatever the sound that animal makes. So it really engages and pulls your students' focus into that story. And also, if you just have a slow day or a low energy day and need something to throw up that's educational, you can pick one of the videos of a story you've read already for them to review, or throw a video on that they haven't read the story for as something new to engage with. So different ways to engage with our material. So let me show you what this looks like on the student platform. Let me bring y'all over here. Okay, there we go. So it kind of works as a slideshow. So each one of those boxes that I showed you as I scrolled through, each one of those works as a slide so that the students are not overwhelmed. They only see one thing at a time. So they start here on the map page, they click this next button, and then they only see that one chunk and that image and that audio. And they can work their way through the book at their own pace that way as well. So this might be a lot easier if you're using the story script and presenting it to your students on a projection. You might want to put it in student view to make it like this presentation you see here instead of what I showed on this page with scrolling through it top to bottom. Okay, I just talked about that. The videos for the stories, units 1 through 4 all have videos up for each story. Units 5 through 9, those videos will be created throughout the summer. So they'll all be there before school starts in the fall. Okay, let's go on to the next part of the historietic structure, which are the activities. So we have 3 base activities. Remember when I talked about the vocabulary, where there's the base vocabulary and extension vocabulary. The base activities, activity 1, activity 2, and activity 3, those are the activities that only use that base vocabulary. You won't find any of the additional extra extension vocabulary in those. So you could only assign just those base activities to your kindergartners and assign all of those 3 as well as the extension activities for your more proficient students. Let me show you what that looks like. This is another thing I can show you here in the teacher view, but it's the old, what you would see in the regular textbook, but I want to show you what your students would see because it looks a lot better. Here we go. So it looks like this, where there's an illustration that's focused more in on what we're focusing in on that question. There's an audio of native speaker reading aloud the question. Reading aloud the question, as well as the options for the multiple choice, and they can select their answer before moving on. This is a really cool new feature for us. It used to be all on one page, so I'm really excited about this as well. The extension to the first activity is also multiple choice, so it looks the exact same. Oh, yes. Let me show you a matching. Here we go. So we also have matching, where there's images from the story and they can connect to dialogue from the story, or sometimes it's image to another image. Sometimes it's image to a vocabulary word. So it varies in the types of matching. And the extension to that is a sequencing, where the students would put the story events in order that they happened in the story. Then the next activity type is also new for Voces, if you've used us before. This is a new activity type called, well, in our Spanish books, it's called dibuja, draw. So it's a drawing, I guess it's technically a photo submission app, so it doesn't have to be of a drawing. But in this book, every 3rd activity is a drawing prompt. So your students get to be creative and either extend a scene from the story they just read, like this one, draw one of your favorite scenes from the story, or it could be like, what do you think happened after the story? Sometimes it's like there's a story with birthday invitations, so they get to draw the birthday invitation and add all of the information. So there's a lot of creativity in this format. And then they'll take a picture. If they have their own devices, they can take a picture of their drawing and submit it to the teacher, so the teacher can project all of the different students' drawings. I'm really excited about this one. I'm a big creative person, so imagining all the submissions we're going to get with this activity makes me really excited. And the extension for this 3rd activity is always a speaking activity to give more variation to the types of activities we present. So for the more proficient students that want to practice speaking more, there are prompts that you can assign to them to respond to verbally. So the next section that I talked about was the extra section. If you use Voces, this is the same format that you'd find in other CI books. There's the video section, an article section, which is embedded readings, and the photo section. So let me show you some of my favorite things in each of these folders. In each unit, you will find 2 interviews. I did a series of interviews with, I think, 6 or 7 kiddos, ranging from, I think, 5 years old to like 13 or 14. So there's a good variation of ages of students in these interviews. And I asked them all a lot of different questions that match up with the themes of each unit. So every unit, you see a video with these kiddos in it, and you'll see the same faces throughout the book. So your students will come to recognize these people and hopefully be excited to see what they have to say for this question. Each interview poses a question right there. So, ¿de dónde eres? Where are you from? So this is a way to get your students to start talking as well in the class about themselves if you want to continue it as an activity afterward. Just like I said, the dibuja activity was a brand new activity format for Voces. This book also prompted another activity format that's new, which is an interactive video activity. So you'll notice there's two videos on this page. This top one is teacher only, and it is just the regular video straight through with subtitles you can use to teach your students through the video. But then you could assign this page and you could assign them to watch the interview again, but it has, there we go. It has questions that will pop up after each student says their response. I can't fast forward, it'll do it in 1 second. There we go. So she just said, hola, me llamo Alessia y soy de Argentina. So you would answer that. You can either replay that last clip if you didn't hear well enough, or continue to the next one. Lucio says his response, and then a question pops up. So you can imagine the variety of different ways this new activity format could be used in your book. So we're going through our old books, if you're using any of those, and adding these in. And if not, you can, once we make it live, you can create your own activities using this format. Okay, let me show you one of my, I guess I should mention, there's also Pocoyo episodes, which is a really cute TV show that's like for kids. I picked up 9 episodes that match the themes of the units to match up for more engagement with them. These will have activities like that as well up later this summer. And there is also this original video series called Pablo y el Profe that is created by Jonathan Bowles. And it has really fun reoccurring characters as well. This is Pablo, and he's a wild child that goes on all of these crazy adventures. All right, that's my timer. I'll wrap up. It's a really cute series that will be continually added through the summer as well. So let me show you 1 or 2 more examples, and then we can move on to our Q&A. One of my favorite embedded readings I will show you. Embedded readings, if you're not familiar, they start off with a short version of a text, so version A, that introduces a basic amount of information, and then a couple questions to assess their comprehension of that, and then a version B that adds a little bit more information to that same information, and then some more questions, and then a third version that's a little bit longer that has a little bit more information built in. So why is this one my favorite? It started out as just a simple embedded reading, and then evolved into a really cool hands-on activity for the students that's kind of solving a mystery. It's kind of a puzzle of guessing who is who. So the first version, it only tells you like people's names and who they're related to. So the wife of, the brother of, the child of. And so they have this blank family tree that they're trying to fill in with the information. As they gain more information, it might change around of, oh no, actually, I think this person should go here. And then let me show you on the slideshow, that would be easiest. Sorry, there we go. So that you can print out those 2 pages, and they cut out each of these pieces. It has the animal, the name, the type of animal, and the adjective that is used to describe them in the script. And then they put it together to make this family tree. And it's really cute and teaches them how to read a family tree, which they see earlier as well. And sorry, I'm trying not to read the chat. Thank you, Aaron. And this is all about, it's a peculiar family because they're all adopted, as they're all different animals. And it's just a really cute story that I love. Okay, so I think I will just do a very brief look at the evaluation section because it's pretty standard. Half of it is, it's a vocab test that doesn't connect to the stories. It's just individual, like, or out of context questions. So like each one, this is a bad example to show you because it's pretty different. Here we go. Each question has a picture and some options to go to it, just like the multiple choice. It's pretty standard vocab test. And then a PQA we have in our other titles as well. Personal questions to pose to your students to get them to use that vocabulary about themselves and their classmates. And then the largest part of the evaluation section, I would say, is the Historia Larga. So that is a longer story that combines the vocabulary introduced in the first two short stories. So this is another story for your students to engage with, but it's not introducing anything new. It's helping you assess their comprehension of that vocab. So, okay, I just went on a sprint through a lot of this curriculum. Now is time for our Q&A. Let me stop sharing and open the floor up to any questions that you have. If I can find you. There you are.
Hi, I'm Catherine in California, and I have a couple questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First of all, so I've explored Voces before, haven't used it. I supervise a pre-K-8 Spanish program, and as you mentioned, we're having the same experience that Erica Poplinsky's had, which is just trying to piece together pieces of a CI curriculum with what's out there. So this is really intriguing to us. I'm wondering for we actually start Spanish in pre-K. I'm wondering for the youngest, maybe pre-literate learners, how you would imagine the interface with some of the activities with the kids that can't read the instructions. Are they built into the video once they press the play button, or how do you imagine that working?
Sure. So that was a huge thing, a huge consideration that Eric and I not fought on, but like we had to bring up over and over throughout the entire process of making this book was, what do we do about our pre-literate kids? So one thing that we started in this book was on those multiple choice activities that are connected to the stories. These audios read the question here and the multiple choice options. So if you are in a situation where you have pre-K and they have their own devices and you're trying to assign them homework to do, this could be something where they just, as long as you teach them how to navigate it with our tutorials, just hit the play button, then it would read it out loud to them, and it reads it in the order that they would see it.
Okay, great.
And there are a lot of the other pieces of the curriculum, like some of the activities that come after those, we do recommend for the teacher to lead the students through it if they are pre-literate, instead of like trying to assign everything for homework. If that is something that you're looking into and you have some ideas on how this would work, assigning to pre-literate students, I'd love to hear some of your ideas too.
Yeah, I mean, we use, oh my gosh, my brain. What is that? What is our Seesaw? I could not think of the name for a second there. So we use Seesaw. So I think as long as our teachers could embed some links in the Seesaw pages, the kids could get to things pretty easily. And I know that the recording elements in that seem to work pretty well, but we probably have to play around a little bit with it. But that's helpful, that the instructions are embedded in the audio. I guess my other question too, if I'm not hogging the floor and if somebody else has a question, I'm totally happy to have this one be put on the shelf. But so this as a kindergarten through grade 2 curriculum, if a school is sort of rinsing and repeating over several years because we see our students 3 times a week for 35 minutes, so we're not necessarily getting all the way through a curriculum, and we have new students joining every year. So how could you imagine that kind of spiral scaffolding happening with these same materials over several years?
Yes, that's a great question, because we imagined, sure, if you're using this right now only for the first time in year 1 and you have K and second, sure, you can assign just the base vocabulary and just the base activities to your K and everything to your second graders. But what happens the next year when those kindergartners are in your first grade and they already read all the stories. So that is something that we see as like, you could be revisiting these stories and going into them in more depth. So if you did this with your group of kiddos one year and only did the base, then the next time, if they remember the story, since it's been a year, then you could say, okay, what do you remember, and start trying to have them be more engaged if they already remember that vocab, and then work your way through the extension activities. And something we recommend in this book that you might have seen in our other CI books is making the story your own with your class. So with that additional vocab, most of the time you won't see any of this in the story. Sometimes one or two will show up in the story, and if that is the case, we add a popover. So for those kindergartners who didn't get taught it, they would be supported. But you can edit the story script page and with your students collaboratively alter the story to work in more vocab or plot points or anything like that. So that's a good way to engage in a story that your students might have read already. You can make it your own.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Any other questions? I'm reading the chat here. So that is a thing as well, like Dawn's saying, picking up where you left off, if you don't work your way through the entire book in 1 year, you can the next year just pick up where you left off in the previous year, so that if you do have some repeat students, they won't be getting the same exact stories. And as well, like I said, by fall, Primaria Dos will be available. So if your students flew through Primaria Uno and did all the base stories and you're not really feeling like it works with your situation to go into the extension, you could even start looking at Primaria Dos and work your way to simplifying those stories to meet your students where they're at, to kind of push them up a little bit, but that's also an option.
I have a question.
Sure, Cindy.
I'm Cindy Avendana. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I teach from 1st grade through 5th grade, elementary school. So how many books do you have for 5 grade levels?
For those grade levels, this is our first book that touches the elementary market. So Primaria Uno, we're recommending for kindergarten through 2nd grade. Okay. And then Primaria Dos, which comes out later this summer, would be 3rd through 5th grade. It has the same unit themes and a lot of the same vocabulary that is then built upon, but the themes and the stories are a little bit older and more nuanced for those a little bit older students that are like too cool for school, oh, cutesy animals, I don't do that all the time, so it's kind of a little bit of a different tone too.
And another question, do you need to buy 1 book per student or 1 book per teacher?
So Aaron, you might want to chime into the best options for it. It really changes depending on your context. If you are in a place where your students don't have their own devices, you could just get the teacher only version and you can just project everything in your classroom. Okay. Or if your students do have devices at home or their own iPads or laptops, then you could get however many student accounts you would need for your students to assign them activities to do on their own.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. What other questions do we have?
Cal, I have a question.
Sure.
So Voces is strictly digital, correct?
Everything we have is the firstly digital, yes, but we are currently working our way through our older titles to get a physical version. So if you do require a physical book, there is a simplified version that you can get printed out. Aaron might need to remind me which ones are available right now if you're asking, but
Yeah.
this one's not available in print at the moment.
So it's a brand new, so first and foremost, everything with Voces is digital, so only online. But we are experimenting in a sense with companion print textbooks for students. And so we just developed some for Nuestra Historia 1 through 4, which is, for our middle and high school students. And we will proceed with all of our titles and eventually get to Primaria. But I did want to mention that, what has always worked in the past and will continue to work is that any page within this title can be printed. And maybe Cal can kind of just show where that print tool is. And it really makes it a more print friendly page. And so any of the writing activities that are just, naturally writing activities that normally maybe they would type an answer in can easily be made into a worksheet that they would then, write in pencil with. So yeah, we don't have any workbooks because that was Veronica's question in the chat too, but a lot of their writing skills can be developed by simply printing out the activities. And just another note, because I've been sitting here listening for a few minutes, but everything that you see here is, it's very complete, and there's probably more things, than there's more stuff here to do than you have time for usually. There are many activities that Erica has, suggested that you do before and during the stories, as well as all the activities that we provide. But we are also always developing more. So, eventually we'll probably have a reader in that's digital, but also, additional material that's printable, et cetera. So we're very much always adding to and improving upon our curriculum. So.
Oh, okay. So to follow up on that. So I'm also at a pre-K through 8 school, and I actually do the middle school, but I have a coworker that does the younger grades. So will this be a program that goes all the way through once you get your 3 through 5, that goes all the way through, and that will kind of scaffold on up to the older kids? I know that we were looking for some book, but we've not been able to find anything that's CI related that is a book without just pulling from resources everywhere. So that's what we were looking for, but I know that we were kind of looking to have some kind of physical something. Is there a lot more advantage to the digital? It's not something that the kids can hold in their hand. I know that's what
Sure.
That's what our administration was kind of looking at.
So the Primaria books are an extension of our Nuestra Historia series that we already had previously published. So let me show you that here. This Spanish CI series here, Nuestra Historia 1 through 4 and AP, this starts in the middle school area and goes through high school AP proficiencies. So the Primaria structure was based off of Nuestra Historia so that the students would be familiar with the flow of a unit, what types of activities are introduced to them, and what's expected of them. So if your students went K through 5th using Primaria 1 and 2, they would be completely comfortable if they started in middle school with Nuestra 1. And they could work their way through, even if your high school used this as well, they could work their way through AP.
Great,
Does
thank
that
you.
answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just to add to that, eventually, probably, it's just we don't have a timeline all planned out because this is so new, and we have other projects, but eventually we will have that physical companion text with Primaria 1 and 2, and yeah, so that will be probably in the next year, if not a little bit less. So
thank you.
What other questions do we have?
I have another one,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Is there any interface for students doing self-paced work? For example, sometimes we have heritage learners or kids who have transitioned maybe from a bilingual program who come with more skills, and we're always looking for ways to provide them enrichment. Is there an avenue for that?
Yes. So let me bring you over to the student view. This new student interface is really simplified so that like every time you, oh, whoops, don't do that. Hold on. There we go. Every time you refresh, it brings you back to this dashboard. So it's really easy for your students to navigate. So this last page button takes you, if they they've just happened to refresh because the internet was bad, they don't lose their place. They can easily go back to the last page they were on. Or they can view it by what you have assigned them. So that's really the, if your students are using their own devices and you're trying to give them homework, you can go through your title and assign which specific pages you want them to do on which dates. And you can even say like, don't let this activity show up in their system until after this specific date. So you can get really detailed. We have lots of tutorials, and if you need help with the settings on all of the activities can get so detailed. We have so many options. So if you want help working your way through that and understanding it, you can set up a walkthrough with us. So that's an easy way for your students to see what is on their to-do list right now. They could just click, I haven't assigned myself anything right now. So they would just click this assignments and it would show them a list of what they need to complete. And then this review section lets them review which things they've already completed and you have graded. And then to answer your question about kind of at your own access, that would come into this fourth button, Explore. So this Explore button is the directory, basically, what you were seeing on the teacher view with it nicely organized in the folders. It's that same system. So you can take, say you're doing unit 1 right now with your students and you want the entire extra section, all of those videos, embedded readings, and photo activities, all the extra stuff not related to stories, you could take that out of teacher mode so that it would show up here in this Explore section for, see, like right now, there's no extra section here in unit 1 because it is teacher only. So if you took it out of teacher only or selected certain pages that you want them to see at their own pace, you can direct your more proficient students or your native students on how to get to that extra section when they're wanting some more content to work through on their own. So yes, they can definitely, as long as you take it out of teacher mode, you could be either holistic about it and take out a whole folder out of teacher only mode so they see it, or you could be strategic and pick certain pages. So there's definitely lots of options to play with those in your specific context.
That's really great information. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Can I answer Liliana's question?
Yes, I just want to read it.
So I guess, well, first of all, I guess, so you're asking if this, oh, that, do you think that, okay, so first of all, I guess if you want a trial to Nuestra Historia, I guess it's kind of hard. Can you unmute yourself, Liliana, and clarify your question? Because as I read it, I thought I understood it, but as I see it, but I guess number one is any of the series works as long as you feel comfortable using them. All of our titles, including Primaria, like we're talking about it as a curriculum because it is, but all of our titles can be used as kind of a, you know, a collection of resources that you can pick and choose from and, you know, use the ones that you're most comfortable with. So, you know, there's that to contend with, like to consider. And then if you do purchase Voces under our new pricing, you can have access to any and all of the titles. So if there were elements in Spanish, in introductory Spanish or Nuestra Historia 1 that you wanted to use with your students or use with your more proficient or native speakers, you could do that too. So it's like very, you know, there's a lot of choice that you can have. But if you were to use Primaria 1, as Cal is describing, I would say that like the next most logical step, if you were to like continue forward with it, would be Nuestra Historia, because it's very much, you know, this is a CI based curriculum, and it is it mirrors our Nuestra Historia series. So as he had mentioned too. So, okay.
It also could work in reverse. If you teach high school and your students are just getting really bored with whatever you're teaching them, then, and you want to have a fun, goofy, childish day, you could come drop into Primaria 1 and have your high schoolers read a kiddie story so that they feel fun and reading time, you know? So it definitely can, how you engage with it, you can definitely tailor it to your specific students' needs. I see some other questions here. Like, does it work on iPad? Yes, everything in this book, I tested on my own iPad to make sure the formatting and everything works. So yes, if your students' devices are iPad, or even if you're using your teacher view on your own iPad, yes, that all works the same as well. Katrina, yes, Primaria Dos, which is for grades 3 through 5, will be ready by the end of summer. Veronica, your question about assigning activities, if you only have the teacher license only, no, you can't do that, because in order to assign it to your students, they would need an account for you to assign it to. So if you want your students to do the activities on their own devices, you would have to make sure you have the student accounts as well. Several people have asked how much is it? So Aaron, remind me, or let me know if I got this wrong. We just recently updated our pricing terms. So you can get access to our titles teacher only for $100. And on top of that, purchase however many student accounts you need.
Yeah, so it's $100 for teacher access to any and all titles. So this plus whatever other titles you would like. Plus, and you get 10 free students with that for $100 for 1 year. And then you can purchase additional student licenses for like in batches of 10 for $100 each for 10 student licenses. Yeah, that. And so those are yearly price, like annual prices. So it's a calendar year. And then if you want to do like 3 or 5 year licenses, we have those prices. And if you have any other needs in that respect, we can give you a quote that would reflect those like specific needs. Because if you need like a 4-year quote or something, we are pretty accommodating in that respect.
Yeah, if you feel like one of these packages doesn't fit you exactly, then reach out and we can definitely talk about it, your situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions?
That seems like a screaming deal. I could just
sure is.
Especially if you just want to play around with it and get a teacher license to experiment with. So thank you for making that really accessible.
For sure. And right now, you guys can have access to Primaria 1 until August 15th. We really want teachers to like dive in and have the whole summer to just explore it and play with it and just get comfortable with it. So if you didn't get that trial yet, you can email info@vocesdigital.com and they'll set you up with that access. I'll put the email in the chat.
I'm adding the sign up link.
Thank you.
I have another question. I think I saw somewhere on email that there was going to be some kind of a training or something at the end of July. Is that just for this Primaria 1 or do you offer trainings for the different levels?
So that is our, in the summer, we have an entire conference of trainings and different types of sessions to help implement Voces in your classroom. So no, it's not just about Primaria. I did mention at the beginning of this that Erica will be presenting about this more at the summer conference. So maybe that's what you were thinking, but yeah, there's other sessions about all of our other titles and also sessions that apply to all languages. So it's not always title specific.
Yes, and you know what? I'm going to put a link to where you can register for that conference. And I think I'm getting, yeah. Oh, and I already put the link where you can see the schedule and register actually. But I want to offer everyone here, whether you're a subscriber or not, free access to that event. So it's normally $50. It's all virtual, but I'm going to give you a promo code that you can use that will give you that will make it $0. The promo code is summer camp, and you just enter it when you like purchase a ticket. So like, do not put your credit card information in, enter the promo code, and it will result in, a $0 owed, and then you'll be registered. And you don't have to attend the whole camp. It's 4 days. It's kind of intense, but even if you just attend Erica's session and like a few others that just look appealing, I would say it would be very worth it. So we're going to have a lot of great presenters and really talking about topics that relate to any language class, no matter the level. So.
I will also share my email in the chat. You can either always email info@vocesdigital.com, but I'll also share mine. If you have very in-depth questions about this, you can email me. All right, any last questions before we move on to the raffle of our storytelling book? Yes, Dawn, the sessions will be recorded. You can find all of the recordings. Oh, perfect. You can always find the recordings from past trainings here on the Voces Digital website under training. That's where you can also find those tutorials I mentioned earlier about how to assign or how to change a page. If you click, whoops, if you go to right here, Voces conference recordings, you can view the past recordings that we have from our past presentations. Okay, I'm going to do a random number generator. Let's see, between how many people are here? There we go, 18 minus 2, 16. Okay. Erin, how many should we raffle off? How many storybooks?
Let's do 3.
Okay. All right, number 12. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Katrina Farmer Ron, congratulations.
Woohoo. I'm going to take people's names and then I'll email you.
Okay, perfect. All right, the next one goes to number 1 on my screen, which is Emiliano Soar. Congratulations. And
yes, yeah,
you won.
I'm here.
Great, you won the one of our storytelling books that has 2 stories from this book in it.
Oh, thank you. Did I win?
Yes, you won.
How come? I do not know. How come?
And then our last one goes to 6th person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lisa Marinelli. Congratulations.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Erin will be reaching out to you to get your info
Muchas
on
gracias.
where we can send you the book. It's very cute. It features 2 of my favorite stories from the book. One about a sloth that learns to ride motocross bicycles. It's very cute. So I hope your students enjoy it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's and that's actually an example of, kind of the extra material that we will continuously develop, for all of our titles. And I've seen this reader and it's like still slightly in development. So it's not being printed just yet, but it will be printed very soon. But just looking at the PDF, it's like the cutest book ever. And it has, it's like it's going to be a very big book so that you can hold it for your students and like read it to them and they'll be able to see the pictures and the text and everything.
Okay, well, that is our presentation. Primaria Uno is officially launched. So reach out to info@vocesdigital.com to get signed up for that 60-day free trial. And if you have any questions about Primaria or anything that Voces offers, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank